Quarterly reports released by the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NERC, show that subsidy bill climbed to 1.98 trillion naira over a 12-month period, even after tariff increases for many consumers. Now, the federal government absorbed the shortfall between approved tariffs and the actual cost of electricity supply. Now, the subsidy burden, which stood at 471.69 billion naira in the fourth quarter of 2024, rose to 536 billion naira in the first quarter of 2025, eased slightly to 514 billion naira in the second quarter of the same 2025, and declined to 458 billion naira in the third quarter. Now, bringing the total for the period to 1.98 trillion naira. Now, the latest NERC report says the subsidy remained necessary because electricity tariffs across most customer categories were still below what is referred to as cost-reflective levels. Now, the regulator noted that the burden stayed high despite the Band A tariff adjustment introduced in April of 2024, which removed subsidies for customers receiving at least 20 hours of electricity daily. Well, joining me now on Newsnight to interrogate the sharp rise in the federal government's electricity tariff subsidy, which reportedly, increased from 610 billion in 2023 to 1.94 trillion in 2024. Of course, representing a huge surge. I have Dr. Anthony Akah. He is former acting chairman, National Electricity Regulatory Commission. Good to have you on Newsnight tonight.
Thanks, good to be here. Thanks so much.
I wonder how you feel about this report. Is it something that you're happy about, considering again that we're hearing subsidies are necessary because, we don't have cost-reflective tariffs. Well, let's start with this surge, sharp surge from, in electricity subsidy that's hit 198 trillion from over 480 something billion naira in 2023.
Thank you very much. You know, the subsidy that the federal government introduced, like you said, is to cushion off the impact of cost-reflective tariff on most Nigerians.
Right.
And subsidy volume also varies with respect to quantity of power that are wheeled out. So it's imperative for us to situate what was the quantity of power at the point of comparison and to right now. But fundamentally is that the regulator is working so hard to find a way out how we can deal with tariff subsidy. While subsidy is seen as essential by some, it's definitely not sustainable.
That's a fundamental question.
The pathway to go, which I believe the regulator probably is working on, is for us to be able to move away from a highly subsidized electricity tariff to a full cost-reflective tariff.
So how do you exit?
How we exit that is the fact that a lot of tariffs for now are frozen in terms of having it adjusted to meet the realities of cost of production, generation, distribution, and transmission, and especially Band B down to Band E.
Right.
So what the government or the regulator could do at the right time is for the government to remove those subsidy and, however, introduce something like Power Consumer Assistance Fund, because in our electricity act...
Say that again.
Power Consumer Assistance Fund.
Okay.
That's a fund that is set aside to target customers that are very vulnerable.
How is that different from subsidy?
No, it's also a subsidy, but then this is a targeted subsidy.
Okay.
What you have now is a subsidy that draws almost across the board. And therefore, the volume of subsidy that the government is paying is quite huge.
Right.
So there's a need for us to recalibrate the tariff in a manner that will make it that we have cost-reflective tariff and provide social welfare, social support system like it's done in Brazil by having consumer assistance fund.
Right.
And once we set that up and we're able to do that, then we should be able to provide the distribution companies enough inflow, while at the same time making sure that our bilateral contracts that ensures that for whatever amount of power that they take, they must pay back to the system. So there are a whole lot of things that are triggering this liquidity problem.
Let's talk about that.
So, at this point in time, one of the major problems we have in the sector is liquidity problem. And that liquidity problem arises from many things. We have the average technical, commercial, and collection losses, which relates to the fact that some distribution companies or all distribution companies find it difficult to collect the revenue that they owe to collect. And they are the primary...
With energy losses
come to play. And as in tariff modeling, both the allowed losses must be made whole, which means it must be contained in the final tariff that the customers pay. So when distribution companies cannot collect enough revenue, it affects the liquidity that goes down to GENCOs, that goes down to transmission and other sector players. Right. We also have the issue of gas supply problems that inhibit the optimal production of this power. We also have issues about tariff, because so far tariff has not been cost reflective to a greater extent. And if you don't have a tariff that is cost reflective, it reduces the volume of money that ought to come to the system. You also have the subsidy issue that the government is finding it difficult to pay. So we need to, the regulator, and I believe the government, need to recalibrate this tariff and make it cost reflective while providing a social network.
How exactly do you achieve this cost reflective tariff? Because I've been hearing it forever, at least since the whole breakup of the legacy power company, NEPA, was broken up. We've been hearing cost reflective tariff, but nobody's able to tell us exactly how do you achieve that cost reflective tariff. What are the fundamentals that need to be in place?
In simple terms, electricity is a product.
Right.
There are costs involved. Just like you have the marketplace, you have production of bread, all the costs involved, both operational, that go into that.
Yeah, into breaking that.
Yes, and the regulator makes sure that these costs are those that are prudently incurred. You cannot come to ordering the rate-based setting. The distribution companies cannot come to the regulator and insist that this is the cost that he must accept. The regulator has to be sure that these are necessary costs and they are prudent to the production and distribution of the power. So when you recalibrate all these things, it gives you what the tariff looks like in layman point. Secondly is that the fact that you know that pricing of goods, pricing of the input, more especially when you know that most of the inputs for power are imported. It's affected by forex. It's also affected by cost of gas and the rest of them. So periodically, you have to have a review to make sure that these tariffs are brought back to what it should be. But what has happened over time, and it's not a fault of the regulator, is the fact that tariffs are kept at a certain point while the government, out of its own magnanimity, provides a subsidy that will bring it up to a cost-reflective tariff. That is not sustainable. And
you've not addressed the issue of weak metering, which I want to believe is fundamental to achieving cost-reflective.
That is a major issue, because you don't have metering, and that is the most acceptable unit of measurement that gives the confidence to customers. Because if we don't have rapid metering of all the customers, it's difficult for us for the distribution companies to be able to collect their tariff. At the same time, it's difficult to get the confidence of the customers to pay their tariff. So metering affects a whole lot of things.
And of course, the power minister has actually said, look, we need to get power to the poorest of the poor, indicating that this subsidy is really not sustainable at the end of the day. And considering the fact, too, that the federal government is owing about 4 trillion to the GENCOs, the generation companies. Well, I guess we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much, Dr. Anthony Akah, for joining us tonight on Newsnight. Former acting chairman, National Electricity Regulatory Commission, NERC.